Well, good afternoon and welcome to the next installment of Coffee with Jim. We are here in Malibu without students, but hopefully they'll be here. But we're here with a good friend of mine, Monty Moran. We're going to be talking about his journey as the co-CEO of Chipotle, but also as a Pepperdine Wave. Some of you already know this, but make sure you pick up your copy of Love is Free, Guac is Extra, and apparently biceps are included in the cover of the book. I needed to think about that when I was writing a book. I'm here with Monty Moran. Monty is a class of 1993 graduate of the Caruso School of Law, someone who I got to know well. I'm going to start off by reading an excerpt from the foreword to the book. The book is called Love is Free, Guac is Extra. So we'll talk about the title in just a second, but here's an excerpt from the foreword. I'm excited about the journey you're about to embark upon with my good friend Monty. This book is less of a textbook written by a leadership professor and more of a conversation with a transformational leader. I'm confident you'll learn much more about leading and loving from this easy to read and easy to apply memoir than you would be by reading a whole stack of leadership textbooks. While Monty's rise to the level of international prominence and became a Wall Street darling in the context of the fast casual restaurant industry, this book's principles and teachings apply to every industry and sector. You'll become a better leader and a better person simply by reading this book. It's full of hilarious and touching stories, thoughtful nuggets of wisdom, and loads of enduring truth. It's always about the truth with Monty, and it has been since the first time I met him 30 years ago at Pepperdine University School of Law. Thank you, Monty, for the privilege of writing the foreword to your book.
Well, and thank you for writing it. And I never heard you read it before, so nice to hear you read it too. Thank you very much, Jim.
Well, tell us about first the title of the book, and then we'll kind of rewind and walk through how you ended up at Pepperdine, your career, and then what you want people to know from the book. So tell us about the title.
Well, I didn't have too much to do with the title. Except that I picked it from a number of things other people came up with. The title I wanted to call it Legacy of Love. So love was always going to be in the title, but my publisher said, that's too general. And so David Chrisman, who works for me, my director of operations, he came up with the title Guac is Free, Love is Extra. And I sort of said, well, I don't know, it's too Chipotle-like, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe a little cheesy. And then my son, Michael, he had a friend named Johnny Garcia. And Johnny was walking through the house and said, is that going to be the title of the book? Because there was a mock-up of the cover. Guac is Free, Love is Extra. He goes, is that going to be the title? And I said, well, we're thinking about it. What do you think? He goes, yeah, flip it. Love is Free, Guac is Extra. And I was like, oh, yeah, now I like that. And so after about a week of thinking about that, I finally voiced that to David Chrisman. He said, actually, I like that better. And that became the title. So, it's Love is Free. Love is in the title because, love is at the heart of great leadership and actually at the heart of anything worthy in a great life. And Guac is Extra is a little tip of the hat, obviously, to the fact that much of my experience at Chipotle is in the book. And that was sort of the apotheosis of my leadership, I suppose, was my 10 or 13 years at Chipotle as CEO there. So that's how it came about that, I guess.
And we're all used to paying extra for guac.
Yeah, I know. One of my mom's friends said, I never pay extra for guac. Turns out she's a vegetarian. Yeah, you get guac free if you get no meat. So maybe, but it would be, to make the title Love is Free, Guac is Extra, except when you get no meat, would have been a bit cumbersome.
That would have been a bit cumbersome. So talk to us about how you ended up at Pepperdine for law school. You didn't come here for undergrad. How'd you get here?
I just got a note that someone could not hear me very well. I'm going to try to talk really close and really loud. I wonder if I could, if I dump my mic and just use my computer.
I think you're good. If you lean in and talk louder, then you're good.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm going to, I put my audio all the way up, just for anyone who's wondering. I really have turned it all the way up. I wonder. Okay, and this doesn't do anything, does it? No. Okay.
No, just talk louder.
Okay, I'll just talk louder. And please, if somebody still can't hear me, then say it again. Put a chat out again, and I will just lose the microphone and try the computer mic, and maybe it's better. Who knows? Anyway, ask me a question again, Jim.
Yeah. So how'd you end up at Pepperdine?
Well, I was working in Los Angeles as an insurance adjuster at Farmers Insurance. So an insurance adjuster is the guy who goes out and when a house burns down, he shows up to determine how much it's going to cost to rebuild the house and write a check to the insured or pay for the damage. And in that job, I worked with lawyers a fair bit, and actually found that it seemed a bit fascinating what they did, but also I wasn't super satisfied with what they did, and I thought I could do that. And so people had told me throughout my life I should be a lawyer anyway, because I guess, I don't know, maybe I talked too much or had too many opinions. And so I started looking at law schools, and then one day I just drove up to Malibu and drove and stood on the front porch of Pepperdine. And I thought, well, hell, this looks good.
Or maybe heaven.
Yeah. Right. Well, so anyway, I went up on the porch there and I thought, this looks like a beautiful place. I could study here. And so I picked it in large measure because, and of course, a good friend of mine, Tim Spong, had years before had a picture of Pepperdine University School of Law on his wall in college. And it's funny. And he goes, I'm going to go to Pepperdine someday. And I said, oh, really? And he talked about what a great school it was. He didn't end up going to Pepperdine, although he did go to law school, but I did. So anyway, it's kind of funny. So it had been in my idea. I'd had an idea to go there for quite a while, but it bent the nail over when I went up there and walked around a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we were in Section B together. I remember Bob Brain's torts class and Harry Caldwell's criminal procedure class. Several other ones that we were in together.
Yeah,
and I remember
Ogden, or Professor Ogden.
Yeah, Greg Ogden.
My friend Bill Ogden. Sorry,
absolutely. And I remember you sitting pretty close and being involved in the discussions. And I remember just this unstifled sense of curiosity that was part of who Monty is. Tell us a little bit more about that. Did that come about in law school, or was that pre-existing?
Well, for better or for worse, that's been pre-existing. I drove my parents crazy. I had very, very bright parents, and my dad was a cell biologist who seemed to me to know everything. And I used to ask him questions all the time, to the point where it was very obvious that it drove him nuts. And in fact, I think it drove him so nuts that built a degree of insecurity in me, because I think I drove my dad nuts a lot of the time. I walked too loud, talked too loud, interrupted, asked too many questions, and lit one question off another and wasn't satisfied with the answers. And so I learned to ask questions better. I learned in order to get my dad to accept my questions, I had to learn to ask them in a way. And I compare in my book, I talk about how I learned to ask them as a guru, as a monk, as a student would of his guru, with this grand respect and reverence for him. And when I asked him just right, then I'd get these really good answers. So I learned to be very polite in my question asking, and I think very effective in it. And but yeah, that was something my whole life. I've been extremely curious. I can't stand not understanding things. It really bothers me. And it's not necessarily a good thing all the time.
It's a good thing most of the time, but yeah, it can be a little bit high maintenance at times. But I remember a story you and I talked about during our first year after the first semester, about a conversation that you had with Ron Phillips, who was then the dean of the law school, that expressed a lot of curiosity on your part in perhaps something that came out of your supposed answer to the question you were asking. So tell us that story about Ron Phillips.
Well, after my first semester of law school, I took my exams, and as I'm sure they still are, they were all mostly essay exams, at least they were when I was there. And I filled book after book after book with my messy, fast-written cursive. And at the end of all my finals, I decided that I flunked out. And so I went up to Dean Phillips because my tuition for the following semester was gonna go hard and be non-refundable. And so I thought, well, I better quit before my next semester's tuition, goes non-refundable. I'll go do something else. And so I went to Ron Phillips and I said, hey, Dean Phillips, I've got to quit. He said, well, why on earth do you have to quit? And I said, well, I failed out. And he said, well, how on earth would you know that? The grades aren't coming out for, I don't know, was 10 weeks or whatever, 6 weeks, whatever it was. And I said, well, I went to private school before this for a year, and I had essay exams, and I know when I fail an essay exam, and I know when I pass one, and I failed these. And he said, anyway, so he talked to me for a long time. I think he might've spent an hour with me. And he said, it's happened many times before where somebody thought they did poorly and actually did quite well. You might be surprised. And well, I said, not me. I'm not going to, And I said, I want to get that tuition back for the next semester so I don't lose that. But eventually he talked me out of it. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll roll the dice. And ended up that I was in the top 10% of my class, but barely. And so when I got the grades back, so I remember when I got my grades back, I was literally the happiest I've been in my life for like 38 seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh my God, my grades I got all A. I mean, I got A's. This is amazing, And then all of a sudden, about 39th second, I was like, well, I should have tried harder because I'm at the bottom of the top 10%. so I tried harder later. And actually my grades the next kind of went through the roof after that. Never caught up with you, Jim, because you started on top. And it turns out that once you get top 10%, you can keep being at the top and it still only cuts it in half, but never gets it to the top number.
Well, I suspect if we compared grades after the first semester, you would have beaten me, but
I had that first semester locked.
I'm never slow out of the gates. I may not always finish strong, but I'm going to be quick out of the gate. So talk to us. You went through law school on law review, got involved in quite a few internships working for firms during the summer, and ultimately decided not to go back, at least not right away, to Colorado. Talk to us about your career path post-graduation pre-Chipotle.
Yeah, well, I got a job on on-campus interviews, and I got a few jobs on that, and I picked the one that I thought just felt the best. It felt like a place. I liked the people there. It seemed like they were neat folks. They were bright. They were really upbeat. And so I went to a firm called Morris, Polish and Purdy in downtown Los Angeles. And it was kind of a funny time that I should pick because I was in the top floor in a 28-story office building right off the 110 freeway there in downtown LA. And it looked out of my window. I looked right down at the crowds that built outside the LA courthouse. And it was a strange time to have that view because during my time, just a few years working there, there was the Rodney King trial and the OJ trial and the LA fires. And I mean, it was quite an amazing time to be a lawyer. But so I practiced law at this firm. They started me out they thought I was a promising young guy, I guess. And so they gave me these big fancy cases like defending Pratt and Whitney, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals and so forth. But I ended up doing a lot of attorney-client privilege reviews when you're going through box after box of documents. And I felt like really it wasn't something of great skill. And I was doing this day after day for a while. And I said to the guy next to me, this is boring. I'm not learning anything. And he said, no, this is great, man. They never cut your hours. It's all good billables. And I'm like, well, that's just life ticking away. What do you mean good billable? I said, I want to do something where I can like learn more. And so I went to my senior partner. I said, I don't want to do this stuff. I'm never going to try a case doing this. He goes, oh, well, it'll be a while. And I'm like, well, you mean like 15 years? And he's like, well, it'll be a while. And I said, well, I want something I can try cases on right now. And I said, what kind of crummy little cases do you have to give me? Like, do you have something like that you don't care about? And he said, well, actually, there are some of these insurance defense cases and there was a partner named John Martyr who had brought that client. He goes, talk to John. He goes, I don't think you want to do them, but you can talk to John. I'm sure he'll be back in my office ready to keep going with what you're doing. So I went and talked to John Martyr, and he said, yeah, well, if you take these on, we'll give you probably 50 or 60 of your own cases, and you're not going to get much supervision. I'll warn you. Then I said, this sounds good. So I went over to do that. They call it, what they call it? A pejorative S blank, blank, blank work. And I said, yeah, I'll take that work. So I ended up getting a huge caseload. I took, let's see, I took about 1,500 depositions over the next 3 years, had countless mediations, arbitrations, jury trials. I was in court every single day because back then, I don't think it's the same way anymore, but back then everything was a court hearing. There was nothing taken on motion. I mean, you'd file a motion, but you'd go in and argue it in court, open court. So I was in open court every single day, got tons of practice. And it turned out to be fabulous. I was a total zealot. Like I refused to settle these cases. My job was supposedly to settle them for a little bit, settle them for a little bit, settle them for a little bit. But these were fraud cases. And unless I found that the plaintiff was in the right, which if I found that, which was very seldom because these were pretty obvious fraud, I was going to go to trial on every single one of them. I wanted a zero verdict on every one of them. And so my partners warned me, no, they don't want zero verdicts. You're going to bill too much time. I said, no, they're going to like it because they're going to get a reputation as fighting tough on these cases. And so I did that. And I started going to trial, which no one had gone to trial on these cases. I went to trial on them and I won them. I won all of them that I went to trial on. And I went to mediation sometimes. I went to binding arbitration and I won them. And so I got this reputation for winning the cases. So they shipped me lots and lots more of them. And I got really busy, but it was a baptism by fire into the world of being a trial lawyer.
And then it brought you to the Messner and Reeves firm in Colorado. Tell us about the transition and your rise there.
Well, so my wife, Kathy, and she went to Pepperdine as well, and she was a year ahead of me in law school. And so she was working in Santa Monica law firm, but she wanted to move back to Colorado to have kids. So we both moved back here to have kids back here. And then in Colorado, I did the same thing. Actually, she sent out my resume to a bunch of firms, and I picked the one that paid the least, that felt the best. So I got a bunch of offers in Denver, and I picked one that. The only thing when I accepted the offer, I said, this is the lowest paying offer I've got, and they said, yeah, but this is the best offer for you. And so the guy named Corky Messner, who had founded the firm of Messner and Reeves, called Messner, Pavick and Reeves at that time, he decided that he said, we're your kind of firm. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, we're going to reward your kind of talent. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, we don't ever make partners at this firm. There's no partner track unless you build a practice, become a great lawyer, and become a great leader. And those are the three legs of the stool. And when you do that, you're going to make it. And and if you don't, you'll never be a partner. And I said, well, so for some reason that appealed to me, even though it scared me, because I thought, well, I'll probably never be a partner, but I'll try because it sounds like a place that challenges you. So yeah, I jumped on board and I actually became a partner in, I think, a year and a half. And then I became CEO of the firm in about 2.5 years. Because Corky walked in my office one day, he said, I think you do this better than me. How about being CEO? And I was like, really? And so I took over managing the firm, and he taught me a lot about, managing the firm from a financial standpoint and everything. And there at the firm, I built a culture that started to be, I think, admired by, some of the clients who'd come in and see it. And that led to a lot of other opportunities.
And then one of those clients eventually became a college buddy, Steve Ells at Chipotle. So tell us that story and then your transition to Chipotle.
Well, so Steve Ells had just started Chipotle, had opened a restaurant while I was out in California, actually, practicing law downtown LA. He had opened the first Chipotle. And he and I stayed in touch. I had met him in college, and he was a great cook. And I was broke. And so I loved hanging out at his house. And so so I went to, when I started at this firm, I was working for a little while at the firm, and he came in to visit me. And he said, man, this firm feels great. Like, the people here are really motivated and upbeat, and like, how did you do this? And I'd be like, I don't know, we just like each other. And he was like, no, really, how did you do this? And so he sat there, and I spent an hour or two telling him how I built the culture there. And at the end of that hour or two, he said, well, how about come over to Chipotle and run Chipotle and build this culture there? And I said, well, but you're CEO. He goes, yeah, I don't know if I want to stay being CEO. He goes, if you can make the company more successful than me, then you should be doing it. And I said, well, I don't know, I'll think about it. But to think about it actually took me 4 years. I kind of said no. I had young kids. I was really into what I was doing. My law firm was growing 40% a year over year on revenue. I was bringing in more and more clients. I was really busy. I was having a great time. I was training young lawyers. I was building this culture, and I just loved it. And so, but as the years went on, he kept asking me, and he said something to me about 4 years into this ongoing effort to get me over to Chipotle. And the thing he said was, because I said, well, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a restaurant guy. I'm a lawyer. And he goes, no, a lawyer is what you're doing. A leader is what you are. And he said, if you come to Chipotle, you're going to have a chance to, oversee a lot more people and have a lot more influence, and your leadership will have, will reach a lot more people. And so consider that. Maybe it'd be a better direction for you. And so it was smart that he said that, because it was kind of like one of those bugs that gets into your ear, like on old Star Trek movie. They had a bug that went into the ear and the guy couldn't get it out. That was his idea, was like that bug. It went in there and it wouldn't get out of my brain. And I thought, well, okay. And so I kind of said, maybe I'll do it. But then I realized, oh no, McDonald's owns the majority of Chipotle stock. I don't want to work for McDonald's. So then I kind of did the stutter step, and I said, never mind, I don't want to do it. But then about a year later, I got wind that McDonald's was likely to spin Chipotle public. In other words, go through an initial public offering during which McDonald's would divest its shares, get rid of all of its ownership, and take cash. And then Chipotle would be an independent public company. I thought, okay, I'll do that, because then I won't, McDonald's won't be my boss. I'll be able to run the thing as I see fit, and I won't have to, be under the glow of the golden arches. So.
Excellent. Well, let me go off of that leadership to read an excerpt from your book. It's on page 32. The only source of a leader's power is that others choose to follow. As leaders, we must not believe that we deserve the power bestowed upon us. Rather, our power arises from others' choices to follow us, and only to the extent that we can harness their energy toward our mission. Put differently, we are at the mercy of those we lead, to the extent that they will follow us only if it appeals to them to be part of creating the change we're asking for. And then you said on page 34, love is what remains when one releases judgment. The absence of judgment allows true understanding, which gives rise to forgiveness, acceptance, compassion, and thus love. To love someone is to feel their truth, feel their essence, the reality of their being, beyond personality or ego. When you know a person's truth and are completely present, such that you can feel their essential nature, a feeling of love naturally emerges. One can't read this book without leaving with a strong understanding of Monty's view of love and why that contributes and really is the foundation for leadership. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I guess I'm sort of delighted that out of 318 pages, you picked on the stuff that I like to talk about the most. I actually believe that love is the stuff of the universe. So when I used to study physics, they talked about the ethos. They talked about this, whatever it is that's everywhere. And there's scientists that have debated what that might be. I actually believe that is love. And I believe that God is love. And I believe that love is God. I believe they're synonymous. So for me, I don't find a differentiation. So, what causes people to be, when people are upset or living a difficult life or having a hard time or feeling anxiety and frustration and all the stuff we humans feel that doesn't feel good, usually that's because there's a chasm between where we are at that moment and being at one with the truth. Oh, let me add that. I think truth, love, and God are all the same thing. Okay, so when I say truth, you can put love in there, you can God in there, either one. Truth, love, and God to me are the same thing. So I believe that the truth of the universe is love, is God. And I believe that as we get distracted by the human condition, and that a lot of times we find ourselves in a life that has some degree of dysfunction. And I think a lot of leaders are highly dysfunctional. All people are dysfunctional to some degree, and none of us are perfect. But leaders tend to be very driven and very ambitious. And a lot of times that comes with a big ego. And the ego, and I've got a big ego. So and I talk about that in the book, how I had to overcome that ego in order to have my leadership be more effective. But basically, the ego is when it's a bit too much about yourself. And when you're leading people, that thing that causes them to want to follow you is when when they believe that your heart is pure and good and that you want what is best for them. Okay, number one, you want what's best for them. And number two, that they believe you're highly capable of helping them find what is best for them. So put a different way, you have to have a really strong vision of something that you want to achieve. Okay, so maybe a company's vision, but the vision has to be something really of a higher purpose, to unite mankind. Or in the case of Chipotle, we talked about changing the way people think about and eat fast food, but that was too esoteric of a vision. So I made a more concrete vision for our people. I said, I want to build teams of top performers who are empowered to achieve high standards. I want to build teams where people love each other, care about each other, and where they care about each other's success more than their own. And people got really fired up by that vision. And also because I actually made sure that we paid people based on their ability to make others better. And let me just stop for a minute because I'm kind of rambling and I want to put a really important point in here. The first thing I said to the team when I joined Chipotle, when I was thrust into a room on the first day and said, hey, talk to these people. It was a group of area managers. And I said, each of us, I said, and first of all, I just said, hi, I'm Monty. I'm the new president guy. I need your help. I don't know what I'm doing, basically. And I think I really did. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. You guys are going to have to help me. But I said, one thing's for sure is that the culture we're going to build here is going to be a culture where each of us is rewarded based on our ability to make the people around us better. Well, that statement resonated for the entire 13 years that I was CEO, president and CEO. And basically we formed the entire culture around that principle. So everyone started to catch on. They started to want to make the people around them better. So there was a vision of making others better, and in so doing, creating a really great culture. And then there was the idea that culture would bring us to a point of incredible success. So that kind of convergence of events caused people at the company, our 75,000 employees, to become extremely excited, and they started working harder and harder and harder, but with more and more enthusiasm, such that it felt, in the words of David Chrisman, it felt like a cult, but in a good way. And so, but at the basis of all that is love. If you don't love the people you lead, then you are not the best person to lead them. Someone who does love them would be a better person to lead them, because you need to look into the hearts of the people that you're leading. And in my case, I couldn't meet all 75,000, but I did my best. I met thousands and thousands and thousands, and I'd sit down with each person I met. Every single day I was sitting down with people, and I sat down with over 25,000 people at Chipotle. But you have to, you actually, and saying that you have to love the people you lead sounds so well, it sounds so Boulder, Colorado, doesn't it? Or Berkeley or something. And I'm from Boulder, so I'm allowed to say this. But really, when I was present with people, sitting with them at Chipotle, I would sit down with them and I would care only about them at that moment. I was totally with them, totally present with them, and I wanted to understand them. And when I got to really understand them, I mean, if you want to understand somebody, you've got to love them. You've got to create a space for them to feel safe, for them to feel understood, for them to feel like you care, and all of those things, put them together. You can call it what you want, but it's the same as love. And so if you create a space of presence where they can feel your care for them and your love and your desire that they be at their best, they pour themselves into that. They trust you and they want to tell you what they're experiencing. They're honest with you, and it's a beautiful thing. If you start doing that over and over and over, then you get a reputation for that. If you start doing that in a way that everyone can see that you mean it, and you do it at the corporate level, meaning that you make pay decisions based on this principle, you make promotions based on the principle of people making each other better. You don't promote your buddies and your friends, you promote the people who do this the best. It's very, very powerful, and people start to believe in the culture. And that happened at Chipotle, and all of a sudden we were on fire because we had 75,000 people who loved what they were doing and felt believed in and felt very, very empowered.
Amen. Well, let me invite our audience to start putting questions into the chat box if you have already started. I'm going to read another short excerpt, and then that will lead into the next question that I'll ask, and then we'll do one more question before we get into the audience questions. So this is from the forward. So this is when Monty joined me in Uganda for a couple of weeks of prison work, and we're in this rural prison in Uganda. And let me read this. At one of the prisons, Monty pulled me aside and asked me a surprising question. "How much is 15,000 shillings, Jimmy?" he asked. "About $5. "That's it? Okay, I need to borrow 15,000 shillings. I said, "Okay, for what?" He said, "Well, the prosecutor says that if I can give him this money, then my client can go free." I stared at Monty in disbelief. "Are you serious? The prosecutor is soliciting a bribe and you want to pay it?" "No. The prisoner is accused of stealing a bushel of bananas, and the charges will be dropped if he pays the owner the value of the bananas." "I understand," I explained, "but our role is to assist the Ugandans in implementing the new criminal justice procedures they have launched. We're not here to buy freedom for individual prisoners." Well, he understood Monty was having none of it. "Okay, Jim, can I borrow 15,000 from you? I will then loan the prisoner the money so he can pay his debt and go home. Maybe he'll pay me back someday," he mused with a grin. I handed Monty the money. There was no talking him out of it. This prisoner, who was now Monty's friend after spending an hour with him, had been in prison for 6 months away from his wife, kids, and life. The bond of love had already formed so strong that there was no way Monty was going to let his new friend stay in prison a day longer. So this to me is a window for our readers into who you are and how you live your life. Talk to me about this connectedness with people. Because I see that in you, and I see that when we're together, whether it's playing poker, whether it's going to dinner or at Chipotle or at Pepperdine, it's about connections with people. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, I guess to me, connecting with other people is kind of all that matters. With animals too, and with the environment. So with the natural world, we call it people, animals, environment. But connecting is what matters. I would define connecting as being in a state of presence where you are actually honoring, understanding, loving, being curious about another human being, for example, if we talk about people. And when you bring that presence to a one-on-one conversation, the other person feels honored because they are, and they feel seen because they are, and they feel understood because they are, and they feel loved because they are. And I think that this sort of 4 things I just mentioned are what everyone in this world wants. Okay, I think everyone in the world, we all have different things and different tastes, and we want different cars and we want different jobs, whatever. But we all want to be seen, valued, loved, and understood. And I think that's that's what we all want. And if we are at all effective in getting that, then we have a satisfying life. If we aren't effective in getting that, then our life is not very satisfying. I think most people are not very effective because they chase the wrong things. But anyway, with this young man in Uganda, I remember it very well. I had actually, it wasn't the prosecutor though who said, the prosecutor didn't want the money. In fact, the prosecutor challenged me. I saw it in the papers that there was a restitution due of 15,000 shillings, which is, obviously, like you said, Jim, I guess $5. And because this person had stole some matoke, some bananas. And they're not sweet bananas, like a potato-like banana. But anyway, so So this person had stolen some bananas, and they were going to have to wait in prison about 6 or 7 years because there was no plea bargaining system by which they could get their day in court before actually going to a trial, and the courts in Uganda were way backdated. So I felt this is a huge injustice. But this guy was a beautiful person, and I sat and talked with him. And granted, his language was different than mine. There's a translator and all that. But I could see in his eyes, and I could see the good person he was, and I just felt this need to help him. And then all of a sudden, when I found out that I could make a play at $5 a restitution, that's when I went to Jimmy, because I didn't have any money, or at least no shillings. And so, but then when I went to the prosecutor, another prosecutor said, "No, you can't. No, you can't pay. This is from you." And I said, "No. He borrowed this money. This is a loan, And I said, I turned to him in front of the prosecutor. I said, "You're going to pay this back, aren't you?" And he said, "Oh, yes." And he meant it. He was like hands together. I mean, he's probably still looking for me to pay me back. He meant it. And she was like, "Okay." And so she signed off and stapled the thing, and it was off to the races. I did find out that an hour later, everyone else was starting to try this, and so they put the kibosh on it, which was a pity. But anyway, beautiful guy. But the bottom line is, this connection is what you asked, and connection between people is what matters. And connection only happens when you're actually present with someone and open your heart to them and are curious about them. Why they are where they are, what matters to them, how's it going with them, and just getting to know them. And to me, that's really exciting. And that's what I did a lot at Chipotle. And that really helped me to have to sort of form the ideas as to how to build the culture. And that culture was the thing that led to people being excited, doing great work, making great food, having clean restaurants, giving great customer service, fast throughput, low occupancy costs, low labor costs, and taking great care of the equipment, and all those things that led to us being the most profitable restaurant company in history.
Excellent.
Per restaurant.
For those of you who want more of what you're hearing, it's all here. It's an awesome, fast read, very interesting and engaging. I'm going to turn it over to Keith to ask some questions in a moment, but connectedness is part of another project you're working on. So give us about a 60-second commercial into what they're going to be looking for on national television from Monty next year.
Okay, so it's called, my series, oddly enough, it won't surprise you, is called Connected, A Search for Unity. And in this is a docu-series where I've got since retiring from Chipotle, I got my pilot's license, then I got my instrument rating, then I got an airplane. And so I fly this airplane all over the place. And so I'm using this airplane as a way to going to all over the country, to visiting people from all different walks of life, and basically bringing forth their wisdom and showing from their wisdom how all of us are really united. So it's called Connected, A Search for Unity. And I can tell you, I'm done filming it. We're editing it now. And I found loads of unity. I found incredible wisdom. I mean, the people in this country are beautiful and incredibly brilliant and super wise. And we are not a divided country. Yes, there are things that are wrong that need fixing. Yes, it is a difficult political landscape for sure. But when you go meet the actual people and you actually hold and you bring an open heart and curiosity and a desire to really understand them, it is incredible. And I think that you're going to see some beautiful, beautiful people and learn a lot from, like I did from the docu-series. We went out to, you said 30 seconds, so I'll shut up.
Yeah, well, just tell us where we're going to be able to see it. I think you said PBS.
Yeah, so it's going to be on PBS stations in February and March throughout the country. Luckily, I guess we had the highest PBS. I guess almost 100% of the channels are wanting to carry it, which is beautiful because they liked it, which is neat. And I was kind of surprised they liked it that much because it's not about politics, it's not about religion, it's not naked and afraid. There are no naked people, at least not in this series, this season. But yet I think it's very exciting just to see what's real in our country in a beautiful way. Yeah,
well, we'll be sending out emails to our community when that date gets close. So let me invite.
And by the way, loveisfree.com is my web. So the website that you'll find me or anything about Connected or about the book, loveisfree.com. I was surprised that was available. I think I paid like $100 for that. Loveisfree.com. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Maybe you can get .org as well in case somebody messes up.
We did. We got .org, .edu, whatever.
Yeah, Keith, why don't you ask a few questions from the audience?
Hello, Monty. Thanks for being with us. Several compliments on your book. Several people have said they've been moved by the book. So they've already.
Oh, wonderful.
Some are saying they're going to go out and buy it. Was there ever a time where you weren't able to lead with love? And if so, what did you do specifically to try to get back to your best self?
Well, okay. So let me go back to the law firm days to answer that. So at the law firm, as I was trying to work to build this culture, what happened before I built the culture was that I got very, very, very busy. And that was a good thing, right? Because as a lawyer, if you're busy, you're needed, you're wanted. The partner's like, hey, that guy's bringing in work. That guy's billing a lot of hours. We like that guy. So that's a good thing initially. Well, it's always a good thing to be busy, I suppose. But what happened was I got really busy, and then I got really, really busy. And then I was going to work at 3 a.m. every morning because I didn't want to miss my kids. So I wanted to get home by 6:30 to have dinner. So I'd push the morning hour earlier, 3, 2, 1. And the earliest I ever went to work was 12:30. And that was after going to bed at 11. So it's a bit much. I couldn't do that every night. But anyway, so what I did is I had to start hiring a lot of young lawyers. And when I hired young lawyers, I had to, give them work to do, of course. And as they did that work, and as the bills went out to the clients called me and were upset with me. And they said, hey, are you pawning me off? Why do I see all these young associates billing time on my work? I want you to do it. Well, guess how I felt, Jim? Guess how I felt when they said, I want you to do it? Loved. Yeah, I felt great. You're the first one to say that, by the way. Everyone else I've asked that question to goes, oh, it must have felt terrible. I was like, no, it felt great. Someone's telling me they want me. And what I realized when I felt so good that they wanted me and not the associates, I realized, oh my gosh, that's my ego. That's me being about me. That's me wanting them to like me. And so I realized, oh my gosh, my ego is in the way of my success, because if I can't get these clients to really appreciate these associates doing their work, I'm stuck just working more and more hours, and I'm limited. I'm redlining. I can't do anymore. And that's the moment when I slipped into becoming a leader, because all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, is it not a higher calling to make others great than to be great? And it's also much more powerful. If you can, we had 40 lawyers at that point. If I can make 40 lawyers, or 40 people in the firm, not all of whom are lawyers, but if I can make 40 people a much more powerfully positive version of themselves, if I can help them be excellent lawyers, if I can help them do a better job than I would do at a lower billable rate, and then I can put them in front of clients who are going to benefit from that better job at a lower billable rate, everybody wins. The client wins because he gets a lower bill for better work. The associate wins because they're learning and excited, and they're working directly with the client, and they've got client control and client contact, which was very unusual, by the way. Most partners don't give client contact to young associates because they want to hoard the client. I did the opposite. I gave them client contact. I let them have the relationship directly with the client, which meant that I was risking losing that associate. But in order to keep that associate, I had to make sure that we had the very, very best culture of any firm, and that they wouldn't want to leave. And that happened, and they didn't leave. But anyway, so all of a sudden I was training young lawyers. I was introducing clients to lawyers. I was building a culture of empowerment, and I started to matter less. I wasn't as important, and that made me more important, because all of a sudden, since I was less important and these associates could do the work, I had time to manage the firm better, to hire better associates, to train them better, to create a better culture, and to create this environment which really empowered people to be at their best. So there was a moment when I had that ego where I was leading out of selfishness and ego, not love. I was leading out of self-love, which really isn't love. That's just ego. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't love yourself. We should love ourselves because we deserve to be forgiven and loved for all of our imperfections. But if we can turn that outward and realize that it's a much more powerful way to live one's life, and a more fun way, and a more exciting way, and a more profitable way, and a more successful way, to actually care about other people that we're leading, and make sure that we do what we can to make sure that they are at their best. And when I was at Chipotle overseeing 75,000 people, and even today I get emails every single day, especially since the book's come out, I've got a resurgence of thousands of emails from people saying, dude, that culture was awesome. We miss you. Where are you now? Can I work for you? And that makes me feel, I mean, they bring me to tears daily, these emails. I'm so touched. And I was only able to do that because I was able to sort of decide that I didn't need to promote my own ego anymore. And I'm not saying I'm cured and fixed and enlightened or anything. I'm far from it. But I know that to be a good leader, you got to worry about other people a lot more than you worry about yourself.
Amen. Keith, I got time for one or two more.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us on this call would be happy to come work with you. And I love your focus on culture. That's important to us here at Pepperdine. And I think we align a lot with what you're saying. Great. A lot of good questions, but this one in particular, did your career choices stem from passion or curiosity?
Did my what?
Did your career choices stem from a passion or curiosity?
I'm not sure I know the difference in my world between passion and curiosity. I think both. I'm extremely curious. When I saw these lawyers doing their work when I was an insurance adjuster, I thought, wow, I could do that. And that looks like a job where you could really make some change and affect things and be in a powerful position to do some good. And so I was passionate about the idea of learning the skills, which I thought would really help me to be a more powerful, positive force for change in the world. And from a time I was a very young boy, I wanted to be a powerfully positive force for change. And I didn't know how I would do that. I guess I still don't. It's a journey, right? I'm still just trying, any way I can. And this connected docu-series is a way of doing that. Writing this book is a way of doing that, because in this book, I promise the book doesn't talk as fast as I do. And I promise that the book is much more articulate because, I had time to write it. And I also promised I wrote every word. No one else wrote it, which I'm told is very unusual amongst authors. I didn't know that. But anyway, so I put myself out there, and I hadn't really done that outside of being CEO of Chipotle or CEO of my law firm. I hadn't really just put myself out there, to sort of be scrutinized in this way and to put my philosophy out there. But the feedback I'm getting is so wonderful and positive that it seems it's helping. So, so yes, it was out of curiosity. Yes, it was out of passion. My passion comes from fulfilling my curiosity and learning and learning new things and understanding new things that perhaps I didn't understand before. And that really drives me. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, last time for one last question. Just a reminder, you can pick this up on Amazon. It's also on Audible. Monty actually reads the book as well, so you get to hear his voice if you're liking that. And it does come with the biceps. Don't forget that.
And also, it'll be louder in the audiobook. It won't be bad. My microphone must be acting up or something.
Keith, last question.
Last question, and kind of a two-prong. One is just, there's several questions just about the kind of the quality crisis at Chipotle, and what did you learn? What did your company learn at that point? And then end with, what is your favorite menu item at Chipotle?
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, what did I learn from what, Keith? Say that again. What are
the E. coli and some of the quality crisis challenges that Chipotle experienced several years ago.
Okay, so the E. coli crisis was really hard for us because we didn't know what caused it. That's the biggest reason it was hard. And also, anytime that you are in a situation where your work and what you've been so passionate about makes people sick, that's terrible. So we had like 55 or 56 people get sick from E. coli. And, there were a lot of conspiracy theories and everything, but basically I just took the time to really look at every single aspect of our food supply chain, from the farm literally to the fork, and everything in between, to make sure that every single step along the way, every single intervention was perfect and as safe as it could be. It is unfortunate that when you're serving 1.5 million people a day, every day, that sometimes an ingredient might carry with it a pathogen. Luckily for us, it was very, very, very rare, but it did happen. And, we did 5,000, we had 5,000 stores, we had, 5,000 tests done in our restaurants, swabs, people looking for bugs, germs, or pathogens in our restaurants. And out of 5,000, right after, during this E. coli crisis, we found none. We found zero. No one could find anything wrong anywhere. Well, that sounds like a good thing, but it's actually kind of not, because when you can't find what the problem is, you can't tell your customer base, hey, we got it. It was the salsa, or it was the avocados, or it was the meat. You can't say we got it. We know what it is. We removed it. We're safe. It's like, if you can't say what exactly it was, people are like, well, then how do you know it's gone? So that really hurt us. And we did, in time, it took us months to sort of figure out come to a theory through mathematics of what it was. And we figured that out, but we weren't allowed to say it because of litigation. But anyway, by that time, people were upset and our stock went down in value. And we lost a lot of sales for a period of time. At that time, I knew what we needed to do. And what we needed to do, other than what I did in making sure our supply chain was as close to perfect and literally the best in the industry, the thing that I wanted to work on at that point was continue doing exactly what we were doing, building an excellent culture where we have a team of 75,000 top performers who care more about their work than anyone else in the industry, who want to do an excellent job, cook hot, delicious food, serve it quickly with a great attitude in a very clean place to customers. That's what we had to do. If you're an Olympic skier and you win 10 gold medals and then you wipe out, I think it would be foolish to look at your skis and bindings and say they never were any damn good, And so I thought, it's like, put your skis back on and start skiing again, so that's what I worked on doing, is just getting back up, dusting off, and making sure that we continue to support our wonderful people, the 75,000 people we had that were doing all the work.
Awesome. Thank you, Monty. I'm sure that I speak for all of us when I say fascinating, exciting, interesting. We're all going to read this book. I had a chance to read it when it was being written, multiple drafts. It was a lot of fun to chat with you about where you were going with it and to see it unfold. And so I invite everyone to pick up your own copy.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And I really appreciate. It's unfortunate I can't be with you in a room and see you and say hi and shake your hand and answer every question. But if you need to get a hold of me, get a hold of Jim, and he'll put you in touch. Otherwise, go to loveisfree.com, and it's just great to be back at Pepperdine, even if it's only virtual.
Excellent. And we're going to be back on December 11th for the next edition of Coffee with Jim. It's actually going to be called Cocoa with Jim because of the holidays.
Well,
so I probably will drink cocoa because I do like chocolate. That's going to be with Jackie Kelly. Jackie is a graduate from 1988 of Pepperdine Seaver College. She is the CEO of Dentsu Americas, which is an advertising agency that's a huge known around the world. And so we'll be talking with her on December 11th. Mark your calendars for January 29th for Bernard Kinsey. Google Bernard Kinsey and you'll see a graduate from Pepperdine Graduate School of Business and in Management, PGBS, and we'll be back with him then. Thank you, Monty. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will see you next time. This is a great holiday gift as well, so pick up 6 or 8 copies on Amazon and send them to the people that you really care about who need to be leaders. God bless you all. See you all soon.